Maybe I gotta turn this up a little bit. Wait. No, that's low. There we go. Hey, look. It's my bright face. Fantastic. Maybe that's too bright. You don't need to see that much of me, do you? Ooh. I'm the best at live performances. All right, so theoretically, I'm live now, and that's happening. So didn't plan on it, just woke up and well, actually, I think it might have happened before last night sometime, not sure. But anyway, there are now 25,000 subscribers. It's quite a milestone for me, and I have no plans, as is typical with my streams. But I thought I would hop on for a minute or maybe an hour or some amount of time and just say thanks. Thanks for the folks that have subscribed. That's it. That's my only plan. I suppose I can log off now, right? I don't need to. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing. If you've chosen to do so, it's much appreciated. The end. Goodbye. That's all straight. No. Yeah. So that's it. I was moved by the amount of subscribers that have joined, and I thought I would just. Normally, I would make a video and be like, "Hey, thank you," but I thought a live stream would probably be more appropriate. So, anyway, that's what I'm doing. Thank you for 25,000 subscribers, and that's all. But I'm here. If you want to jump on and ask sword-related questions, I can do that. Otherwise, what else can I do? That's really most of what I can do. It's up to you though. If you have questions for me or about swords or whatever, then yeah, I'll stick around for a hot minute to answer those. While folks are coming in a chat, and I appreciate the congratulations there, Eric, Cam, up Paul. I appreciate that. I can talk a little bit about what the perks have been and kind of changes since I've started doing YouTube. When I kind of kicked this channel off, it was for the fun and experience of it, and I was even less shooting for making digestible content than I am now. I wanted to help people. It was fun to talk about swords and move them around and do tests and stuff like that. And as subscribers grew, it got to a point where like it was much easier to get review samples and stuff like that. And that's been kind of, I think at least for me, the thing that's most interesting about growth is that now it's much easier to get review samples and things like that than it was before. It's harder to buy things. That's partially because of the market, and also because it's more common now that when I reach out to somebody to inquire about a sword or purchase one, they're familiar with my channel, which is a very weird thing for me, frankly. But that makes it much harder to be as shrewd as I am. And if you've ever sold me a sword, that you probably know that I'm a shrewd guy. But it makes it hard because, when somebody's like, I want $500, and I'm like, I will give you $50. You kind of, when they're like, hey, I've seen your channel, good work. And you're like, I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's harder to be shrewd. But anyway, it's also weird times right now in selling. So the market is very different than it was. But getting review samples has changed dramatically as, the review or the subscriber count went from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands, and now 25,000. It's made it much simpler to request samples and get them and be able to do stuff. And it's been much more fun to be able to experience a lot of variety of stuff like that, and people entertain different ideas for collaborations. And it's been like the more that number grows, the more doors and sometimes windows open that allow you to do other cool, fun, and exciting odd things. It's allowed me to say, hey, I am this stranger from the internet, but here is my face. And then some cool things sometimes happen. Sometimes I can go see private collections because I've done YouTube stuff. Sometimes I can go to a museum and they'll let me handle stuff. Sometimes makers are more likely to give me a tour of their facility, and just it's funny how that little number is what kind of doors it opens. Anyway, I didn't expect 25,000 to ever happen. It's encouraging that it did. I'm grateful for everyone that's chosen to do it. And that's, I guess, what the consequence of it has been for me. Sometimes people think that like there's a huge amount of money that happens. I think I've clarified that there is an amount of money that I get from YouTube from ad revenue, but it doesn't pay for the lens on the camera that I'm using to do this live stream. So it's not something I can quit my day job over, but the amount of cool swords that I've gotten to see because I do this thing with my face, and that people have responded and chosen to click subscribe has been pretty significant. Like I said, I wouldn't have gotten invitations to see private collections. I wouldn't have gotten stuff sent to me to play with, and the experiences I've gotten. People like Sword Friend Ian wouldn't have sent me their private collections to see and experience myself that way. There's just been so many odd, different things that have happened that I really never would have expected. So it is a real treat. And that's why I thought it was, 25,000 seems like a milestone to me. I thought it was a good chance to stop, celebrate, say thank you to everyone that opted to do it, and really let you know why that is helpful. Money is neat, and as it grows, money goes up too. But it'll take a long. I don't ever see a point where like it will really be a financially wise decision to invest as much time in YouTube as I choose to do. But that's separate. If I look at the cool experiences that I've had, they're almost irreplaceable. And so yeah, I don't usually make overtures to subscribe. People understand now watching this stuff if they want to or not, if the content's for them. And I'm overwhelmed that so many people have opted to do that. So anyway, yeah, hopefully that gives a little insight into some of the cool stuff. As the channel grows, I would imagine that more strange opportunities will present themselves. I never would have, when I started, like the idea if you do creator stuff and people are familiar with you, then maybe you've had some experience with it. But it's a very strange thing to like reach out to a stranger and say, hey, you've got cool stuff. Can I like see it? And they welcome you. Like they know you. It's a very strange things. And I just never would have expected that would be the outcome, that I would have gotten to like start with this, hey, I want to test swords and smash them on things. And like, hopefully it's either entertaining or informational, that would turn into like, you get to do cool stuff and see things and further yourself in this hobby, or have some cool experiences around this kind of niche hobby that you simply otherwise wouldn't. So anyway, that has been the experience, and hopefully that is interesting, if nothing else. So if you're not subscribed, please do, and if you are, thank you very much. Anyway, I will hop over to chat and see what people are saying, because when I do live streams, have no plans whatsoever ever. So I will just read chat, and if you have questions, let me know, and I will answer them. If there's a sword as well in my collection that you're interested in seeing, I am behind on cleaning, so it would be a bad time for me to take it down and blab about it. I'll open up that invitation. Shaddy, the last American samurai. No, I don't think so. Might just be my hairdo, or the fact that it looks like I've got that bald top. It's gradually falling off. Moving a sword around, it's very apparent that I am not a samurai, but I'm working on it. Stephanie, your efforts at producing great content are what have earned you this subscriber base. Congratulations. Thank you very much. What is your most expensive sword? That's a tough one, but probably the Anthony DiCristofano sword that I have is likely the one that I think would sell currently, based on what I have for the most expensive thing that I own. I did a video on it. You can find it on my channel if you're keen on looking at it. I don't know if it'll wow you, but the mix between the maker and the folded coolnessy of it, and the repute and the fittings and stuff that are on it probably are what do all that. Value on a sword is a funny thing. Paul, he does create good sword content, doesn't he? That's inner monologue. I aspire to be as good and wealthy enough to afford as many swords. Yes, if you ever have questions about how I produce content, then I'm an open book in that regard, and I'm always happy to help other folks that are looking to do the YouTubey thing, learn how I've at least avoid some of the mistakes that I've made. But aspiring to be as good as me. I do want to preface, like, I'm very grateful for 25,000 subscribers. I do want to point out though that like it's been closer to a decade than not that I've been at it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I would be the best and most useful case study to look at in terms of success. I'm very happy with where I'm at, and if you want something similar, then I'm certainly happy to share any knowledge. You're welcome to send me a PM. Facebook's probably the easiest place to do it. And if you have questions, let me know, and I will be happy to show you behind the curtain, as it were. Panositic. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Congrats. Hope you're still having fun. I'm having too much fun. I realize that I've had a little bit of time off this week, and I've spent most of it making sword-related videos and catching up on stuff. I do feel sometimes overwhelmed. The least fun part, which isn't really the focus of the stream, but it's worth noting, is like when I have too many review samples and people are waiting on me, or it's been months, or when I have other people's property and I know they want it back and I'm kind of behind on videos. As a hobby like that, it starts to feel a little bit like work, but it's always still fun. It's certainly a chore that is a good problem to have regardless. But that's really the only thing, is when I feel like I'm letting other people down. Otherwise, it's really all fun. Playing with swords has continuously been fun. And when I post videos, there's plenty of people out there that know more than me, and some of them comment on the section there and say, hey, what about this or that, or link to things that further my knowledge on it. And that, like, even if I feel like what I'm doing is not necessarily in my wheelhouse, or it's not the best video I've made, or the editing was grueling. When I say grueling, like, editing in and of itself on a good day is not the most fun, but when like your software breaks and everything is going wrong and you have to, redo hours worth of work to produce amateur content, like that kind of thing is what can wear on you. But sometimes, like a thank you or a knowledge drop or something really makes all of that effort, that might not have in the moment seemed worth it, seem worth it. So even the bad days are good, I would say, at least from my perspective. I'm always indulging in a hobby that I enjoy, and so I'm not dependent on YouTube for my supper. I think it would be different if that were the case. I would probably be a lot more stressed. But for me, it's a hobby that I enjoy, and there's not. Yeah, I've really learned to avoid it on on days that it isn't fun. Well, not entirely, but days where I can't avoid it, where I'm just a sourpuss, so to speak. They don't come off well on camera. So I've learned at this point not to bother trying to make content when that's the case. Which, as an internet, just as an aside, I know, like, my daughter and stuff are very interested in being a YouTuber, and it's a funny enough conversation between me and her when she's like, oh, being a streamer, like, a lot of kids want to do that, and I'm like, well, I do that, and like, no, like a real one, Dad. And I'm like, oh, okay, but the idea of being on all the time, like the creators that do YouTube for a living, having to, like, producing content as a one-man show is a challenge, but like to consistently do it, like, you might have a bad day where you're just in a foul mood, and it's really hard to record yourself doing that and then edit yourself and produce content. Like, that I think is it reminds me of a video game where, like, you're past the red line and you overheat so quick if you try to do it, and you just the problems compound, and it's not fun to do. So I'm fortunate that I can just not. I can wait. I don't have any expectations or demands other than, some people waiting to get stuff back, or samples that I'm trying to get, on a particular timeline. But really, there's no, like, contract. There's no, I don't get to pay rent if I don't make stuff, or people will forget about me. Like, those aren't stresses that I have. And I don't think that's a thing that the people that aspire to be creators one day really fully appreciate. Like, by day, I do supply chain stuff. That's my day job. And if I'm in a poopy mood, I can move some meetings around. I can just not talk as much on a conference call. I can take a break, a long lunch. I can, there's things that I can do where I can, still do my job and still be in kind of a foul mood. But you can't do that on camera. Like the content that you produce is tainted by doing that. And I don't know that that folks appreciate the amount of work that it would, like, especially as my daughter's like, that sounds like a really fun job. It's like, well, it's in some ways, if you really enjoy it, playing video games or doing this thing sounds fun for a living, but there's a price to be paid for it. There's some odd stresses that you just don't, that I haven't ever had to deal with. And I've worked customer service and retail and office work, and I did some technical stuff a long time ago. And at any point in any of those jobs that I had, you know, I could be having a bad day. Customer service maybe a little less so, but in tech work and office work and that kind of thing, like if I was in a bad mood, it didn't prevent me from really functioning. But to sit in front of a camera and blabber on and be in a sour mood, that's a tricky one. Anyway, and that's if your mood just lasts, you know, like a day. What if you're, you know, what if you've got something else going on and it's more than that? And then, you know, it's in the best case scenario, if mental health isn't even a concern there, and you have a tragedy in the family that's tough for you to cope with. I've certainly, as many people, particularly in the last couple of years, have lost. And if you're sad for a week, and that just also means you don't get paid, like that's another interesting facet of the creator economy, so to speak. Anyway, that was something of a diversion. But if you're thinking about making stuff, some other things to noodle on. Where was I? Oh yeah, that was from one. Hope you're having fun, and I just went on a tear there. The Fire Dragon, congrats on 25K. Thank you. Cody, love your videos. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Slick Smoke. Hello, Sword Friend. Haven't commented or stopped by in a bit. Hope everyone is doing good. Doing well today, especially. Trending sword topic. Best sword for modern self-defense. That's a topic. Trending sword topic. I've self-defense, I guess, depending on context. When I think of self-defense, most often I think sword related when it comes to like home defense. And when I think of that, I think of something more akin to like a messer or something that you can move around, but that's short enough to move in closed spaces that won't, you know, that you can move through a door jamb. And a long blade, I think, would be challenging in those cases. And you only need it really once, right? And you're not sure what the other person has. Maybe they have a bat or something like that. So something that is pretty resilient, that you can move, but you don't potentially need to move it for hours. You're not talking about a long battle. So I would, like, I think of the Dan Keffler, like, super assassin kind of thing. Like, it's this Wakizashi inspired thing that's made of 3V and is durable enough to chop like branches down and would likely maintain being a very functional sword for quite a long time. The Landsknecht Gustav, like something akin to that size, which is basically, you know, definitely in the short sword territory, not necessarily debatable between a knife side of things. I would usually go single edge, double edge. Like with single edge, you can do reinforced blocks and use it quasi defensively, but that would be the general area that I would go. And I wouldn't mind having something a little beefcakier, because I'm probably not going to need it for hours of carrying or thousands of repetitions. It's, you know, some brief, very important, decisive moments. So that would probably be the way I would lean. If there's a different context where, like, zombie apocalypse or the fall of civilization or something like that, then it might be more advantageous to have something long. But home defense, I would probably favor it that way. I personally have a Gnunting made by John Ledemo, and I had it mounted up in a different style than a traditional Gnunting, but that's the blade. It's tip heavy, it's sharp, it's very resilient, and so that's kind of what I keep around for that purpose. I'm subscribing and unsubscribing and resubscribing. Well, it might take a few of those. I think I'm a little past the milestone at the moment. I don't think it just hit, but you can go ahead. If enough of you do it, that'll certainly do it. Everyone unsubscribe and resubscribe, and then maybe you have a chance to be 25,000. The prize for that is you are the 25,000. What was it like when you bought your first premium katana? That's a story that I've told, and I'm sorry I'm behind on chat already. This could be a little bit more rambly. I think I'm pontificating a bit more than usual today. Cunny Runts. What was it like when you bought your first premium katana? It was bad. It was a Hanwei Praying Mantis, and it's not a bad sword. I just happened to really not like it, and I spent a grip of money and didn't get to hold it. And then when I got it, I was overall underwhelmed, you might say. And that prompted me to start doing reviews of sorts and buying and collecting and that kind of stuff. Well, it really prompted me not necessarily to do reviews, but certainly to buy and sell and trade. It got me a lot more experience and also a little bit of the review side of things. So yeah, if my first experience weren't as bad as it was, I don't know if I would have gotten as involved in the hobby and YouTube reviewing. And I do want to say, like, I throw shade a little bit at the Hanwei Praying Mantis. I don't particularly like the sword. It was heavier and more cumbersome and less fun than I thought it should be at the time. It's been a while since I've held one, but I felt a few of them now, and none of them have been for me. But I don't want to say that it's a bad sword that nobody would love, just that it really didn't happen to suit me personally. And I remember at the time, there just wasn't anyone that, there were some YouTube reviews, but none of them that like would have said, hey, you might not like this. And so that was also something that kind of helped me get into reviews, or where I thought maybe somebody that doesn't have a lot of knowledge about it, which is where I've gained some over time, but especially when I started, I didn't have a historical background in making or understanding or studying Nihonto or Japanese swords or modern Chinese swords. I was just a collector with an opinion. And there's so many other mature hobbies with so many people that create content around them. And swords just at the time didn't happen to be one of them. And it seems like that's changing. There's certainly more people participating in it. Or it seems more easy to find some sort of useful information about a thing you might be considering buying. Slick Smoke, what are your thoughts on Fantastical Ninjato? And have you owned one? I know they're fantasy practical, but I always liked the way they looked. I did. That was one of the first. I got an ninja. I think the first sword I got, like, that was made of steel. Whether or not it was particularly functional or not is a different question. But I was like 5 when I got it. And the Ninjato, I remember getting one when I was 10. I loved 80s ninja movies. I remember Revenge of the Ninja. I watched that quite a bit. I probably shouldn't have watched it when I was as young. Anyway, I didn't have content filters the same way some folks do now. And I remember getting a ninja sword. It was a stainless steel piece of garbage that I later gave away, but at the time it was magnificent. And so I do fondly remember Ninjato. But when you find out that they're like an 80s, when you find out that they're fantasy and not historic, it led me down that fork in the road of samurai swords and katana and other things. And it's not that I don't appreciate them, but I don't have the same infatuation with them that I once did. They do look neat though, and they're not like there are elements of them certainly that are not historic, but like there were straight swords or swords that were straighter. The idea of like long hilt, square suba, straight blade, the way we assume they are wasn't necessarily historic, but there were potentially swords that look quasi similar to them. So, but yeah, they're interesting. I don't have the same fascination with them that I did. Chris Field, hey, and thank you for the congratulations. Much appreciated. Joe, Steel Forge and Fire, congrats. Extremely well-deserved, my friend. You are a hard worker on your videos and truly showing your passion and craft, even on your bad days. I appreciate that, sir. I appreciate it. I'm glad that, there's not too many bad days. The swords usually brighten the day. There's actually been a few times that I can think of making a review where I've been in a kind of a shit mood, but I try to do recording. Sometimes I have to stop and, it's just not the right day to do it. But there have been other times where just, engaging in the hobby has certainly brightened my day. So there's certainly more good days than bad. I'm very lucky to have not just the hobby that I enjoy that like enhances life, but that I can do it, I can share it, and that people respond to it. There's, like I said, there's been so many weird, fun things. I talked about the doors that things open, but the subscriber, it's not necessarily subscriber based, but like the folks that are in this chat now, and I don't want to exclude anyone that couldn't join or anything like that, because I know I'm doing it middle of the day and some folks are asleep or at work or whatever. But just that there's people that engage with me, right? That has been so cool that I can share a hobby and that I know that somebody will enjoy it or find it helpful is just it's a treat at times, and really helpful. People talk, I think, a lot about the downsides of YouTube, and I've been a little bit of a gloomy Gus in the earlier part of this chat, but there's also some positives. I've been told to die from cancer of the ass a few times in the comments section. That isn't delightful, but if you're capable of looking past the 1% of the kind of naysayer comments, there are also people that are very supportive, or that mean well, if you can read through the way that it's typed. And I can often learn stuff from comments, or people engage with me in fun and meaningful ways. And like I said, it's very uplifting in a lot of different ways. So if I know that somebody was mentioning they were thinking about making content, I encourage anyone to do it. It's not easy, but if you stick with it, I found it to be very, very rewarding. Where was I? Oh, chat bounces around. Eric, just have to say, amongst the smaller, dedicated cutters, katana enthusiast channels, you are definitely the most respected and have the vast majority of us, and have inspired the vast majority of us to get into the YouTube game. Well, that's humbling too. I'm glad, Eric, that if I had any part in what made you decide to make your own channel and share your love of the craft, hobby, or whatever you bring to the table, then that's humbling to me. I'm glad. I'm glad I could do that. I think if you incidentally, like, as long as you get into this, like if you're really trying to make a channel that is successful, then being in a niche subject of swords is probably not the best way to do it. Not that you can't, but it's certainly a very niche hobby, which is limiting. But if you come into the hobby to share, and you're genuinely interested in it, and you're not, I think of my daughter. So don't anyone listening, I'm not trying to project here, right? But I do think of my daughter a little bit when I think about like what creators do. And if you go into it thinking that you just want to share, and like making videos is fun, and people that find it enjoyable will join, but you're not expecting success, right? It's nice to get success, but like if you set your heart on like, hey, I'm gonna get to this milestone, I'm gonna do this thing. YouTube is a funny place, and swords and knives are not a particularly big hobby, right? If you have strong political leanings, or if you have some other thing that interests vastly more people or engages people, either through joy or anger, you're probably going to have more success than talking specifically about swords. But if you're just out there to share stuff, and the process of enjoying videos and like the feedback and what you learn is reward enough, then it is definitely worth doing something. It's weird to put your face out there. It's not fun, and in some cases, but if you can have a thick skin, and again, like it's really tough, like human nature, it's 1,000 positive comments can be overshadowed by one negative one, and it's a mental thing that everyone that puts themselves out there on the internet has to kind of get past. But if you can do that, then there are a lot of positive comments out there. A lot of, like, I mean, I randomly, sporadically made a thing to say thanks for 25,000, and there's nearly 30 people in the chat going here saying thanks for swords. And like it's a very overall positive thing if you stick with it. It only took me about 10 years. You could probably achieve similar results, but your mileage may vary. Hopefully it doesn't take as long. Anyway, I appreciate the comments, Eric. Wiley Cody, please share the stream with some of your other sword friends. Hey, share all that stuff. Since it's a subscriber thank you stream, it's one of the few times that I will say like, share, subscribe, please. Please do. I should probably do that more. The YouTube, they tell me to do it, but I figure that's like asking people to inhale and exhale. Like I'm pretty sure everyone knows that it helps if you like and subscribe and share and all that kind of stuff. So people do if they want to, and if they don't, then that, like, I also don't want to be just in somebody's feed or really solicit attention from people that honestly don't want it. Because the engaged, it's nice to have people that are engaged that want to join because it's of interest. And if it's not, that's totally fine. I'm surprised that there are 25,000 people. This is I didn't realize there were that many people that would find my particular brand of droning entertaining. Up all night. Good answer. Your answer is almost identical to Scholargrim's. You promoted the Lance Connect Messer. I also like the Wakizashi. Just any Wakizashi wouldn't necessarily be. I mean, I certainly wouldn't advocate like an antique Wakizashi that might be fragile, but I think of something that I could swing hard into a door jam or hit somebody on like a motorcycle helmet with that would come out unscathed. And the Gustav seems like one of those. Like the Zombie Tools Wakizashi, something robust to, that would almost, if it was dull, act like a bludgeon, would be functional. But close quarters, you're potentially woken up in the middle of the night, slashing Hulk smash style technique, if you have it, goes out the window anyway. I'd want something durable. Honestly, like a Warhammer wouldn't necessarily be, or a pick. Is this one? Yeah. I mean, people talk about swords, but I don't know how often. I live in Minnesota where it's winter 10 months out of the year. So if home defense were a thing, I don't know the likelihood that I would encounter somebody with loose clothing on. If I did, then like a really sharp blade, the Gununting is effective. But this is still effective close quarters, and it's got, it's hard not to do something with it. And if nothing else, it's I can use it quasi defensively. But I didn't think about the perks of a hammer. But regardless of what you're wearing, that human beings in today's society would wear, it would not be fun to get whacked, even with the dull bit of this beak. It's a little sluggish, but not that much in comparison. I could also hook and move people around a little bit. I don't know how helpful that would be. Honestly, like knife-wise or something that isn't bullet-wise would be it. But in fairness, like I do have it, but I would grab a 45. That would be the first thing that I would grab. There would be a lot of bullets in the magazine, and I would have a pistol or a shotgun. I know that they say that the sound can make people go away, but if they're in my house and actually achieved it waking me up, they're probably too close to. Well, I'd want something quicker. Anyway, where was I? Have you had a chance to use a Kanabo? No, I did have one once. I sold it. I didn't particularly like it. It was like a big bat, and I do remember whacking stuff. And so yes, I have had a chance. Was not particularly good at it, and I found that the little rivets on the one that I had came out. Wasn't a huge fan of it. The Crusader, congrats on 25K. Thank you very much. Leon, hey Matt, hey Sword Fan, hello Leon. Thanks for joining in. Glad you could. You must be up very late or very early. I'm not sure what time it is where you are, Leon. Legion, big accomplishment. It is. 25,000 is quite a milestone. Love your channel. Keep doing what you're doing. I much appreciate it. I'll stop reading the congratulations and make sure that I get to the questions. Thank you. And I don't want to say that it's not noticed, though. I do appreciate the kind words and congratulations. But hearing me read them out might not be as entertaining as blabbering on about something else. Or maybe it is. I don't know. You tell me. The Crusader, currently on my way back home. Spent holidays in Paris, visited the museum. I'm going to mess that up. Del Ami and so on. They got an amazing blade and weapon armor collection. Samurai exhibition was nice. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I remember I was on a trip in Louisville, I want to say, or was it Cincinnati or Indianapolis? I can't remember, but I had like this like several hours before my flight, and I was like, well, I'll go check out the latest museum, and they had this exhibition on Nihonto, and I was just like, what are the odds, right? Where like I have some spare time, I'm in the city that I'm unfamiliar with, I'll go check out a museum before my flight kicks off, and they have this like big exhibition on Nihonto, and it was so cool. It was like, what? It's just, what are the odds that that would be like the featured exhibition that was closing soon? And I got to see all kinds of really cool stuff. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm glad that you got to see it. It's always a treat when you run across like a really nice arms collection in a museum where like that wasn't the specific intent that you went to go see. Hunter, how long have you been training in Japanese sword arts? Have you traveled to Japan, or I haven't done any traveling for sword arts apart from U.S. based stuff. I do a seminar in Madison when I could. They haven't had it for COVID times lately. But I know there's always training options available in Japan, and the Toyama Ryu group has various Shinza events in Japan periodically, and I just haven't ever gone. How long have I studied? I want to say, like, being part of an official group, 7-ish years maybe. So I studied other sword related martial arts prior to that, but like being involved in a traditional Ryu, I think Katori was so probably 7 years ballpark. I don't want to make that sound like I don't move like I've studied for 7 years though. I've got a ways to go, but I think that's been about the time that it's been. Oh geez, lost chat again. Where was I? I've wanted to also go to Japan for a vacation, bring my family there, and also to go train a little bit. But I haven't. The pandemic really shut that down. I was thinking about. I probably would have gone this year because me and my wife would travel with the family. Usually try to do one like fun trip a year, and before the pandemic hit, we were on our way to the Alps in Switzerland and to go play around there. And Japan was going to be like a couple of years later, and it just had a little one instead. All right. Bidala, learn lots of things about swords. Thanks. I'm glad that I've taught you some stuff. Hopefully take it with a grain of salt. Trust but verify, right? Shadi, how about epic spontaneous drunkenness? Not today. I did have my last Cocoa Nibsy chocolate sandwich beer, and now it's just carbonated water. Next Friday, I will go to the beer store. Somebody gave me a super chat and instructed that it was for Guinness. So that is what I got to pick up next time. Actually saw a video that Shogo guy in Japan actually does validate them historically. Actually saw a video that Shogo guy in Japan actually does validate. Yeah. Yeah, Shogo. I've seen his content before. He did something recently where he mentioned like which blades came from which period. And I wonder if it's just like a bit of missing context, because he mentioned that like the Tanto was invented at a particular time, but I wonder if that's like a particular type of Tanto. Anyway, I had some questions about one of the videos that he did recently where he said like this polearm or this spear was invented at this time, and I wonder if it's just a particular geometry that he's talking about, because like a Tanto or a spear, I'm sure, like he mentioned, the Yari came in at a particular period, and whether that meant prevalence on the battlefield or like a triangular shaped, stylized Japanese Yari the way we think of them today versus a pointy stick or something made fundamentally differently than the way you would see Yari today. I wonder if he meant that, or like a tanto. I can't remember exactly what he stated, but like a tanto basically is a knife. Now, if he said like the Yoridori style tanto, which was meant as an armor piercer, it had kind of a drop tip, and was made to go exactly the way he said. But if you mean like knives, I'm sure they existed in Japan prior to when he stated. Anyway, that could be like he's also I don't know. It's easy to get in the weeds, and I don't want to say he's inaccurate as much as there's probably some nuance to the one of the videos where he mentioned them historically. Not that I have any corrections to issue, though. It's not as though I know any better. I just remember the tanto in particular. He said like some particular time, I'm like, well, that's a knife. And I'm sure whoever was in Japan probably had knives before, like very early. But like a particular, anyway, I've said it already. Blah, 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 blah. Carl Ruger, thank you very much. I am very behind on chat. Let me see if I can catch up. I'm sorry if I missed questions. Chat is jumping around a little bit. YouTube, I'm Matt. How do I send you a Katana for review? I don't want it back, so no pressure. Ping me on the Facebooks, and that's probably the easiest way, or the Instagram-y thing. Those PMs work. I'm better at answering Facebook messages to the Matthew Jensen sword reviewer guy thing that I post in videos than I am Instagram messages. I know, Eric, you probably waited like 3 years for me to respond to a message that I sent you because I'm bad at it. I'm kind of figuring it out. But either of those two are the better way. YouTube also has my email, but you have to prove you're not a robot, and it's apparently a pain in the ass to find. But either one of those, send me a PM, and I'll be certainly happy to take a sword to review. Crazy Engineer, I really enjoy the channel. Learns a lot, and I enjoy. I'm glad you enjoy it. I said I was going to stop reading thank yous and then kept doing it. I'm sorry. Warhammer. Is that what that is? I just called it a toothpick. Yes. Well, I do have it handy. So this is Warhammer. You don't see that the hammers being particularly large. So they've got the beak on the back. And if you want to smack something, then all of that force is on one point. And Warhammers historically tend to be a little bit smaller than, Warhammer 40K, for example, or like the Mjolnir or something like that, because you're delivering all of the force to a smaller area. So they tend to be a little bit smaller, but they work pretty well. I remember I pierced a water heater, that drum that you've probably seen me bash things against in the fire pit in the backyard, but I was able to smack a hole in it with this thing. So it can pierce. So yes, not a toothpick. Would not function particularly well as a toothpick. It might be, yeah. I wouldn't want to use it as a toothpick. Not just because I bashed into a rusty water heater either. What do you think about the Cold Steel Brooklyn Smasher in that regard? I think that's their baseball bat. Isn't that what that is? Let me look it up. Yeah. I haven't had one. I don't know. I don't know what to say about the Cold Steel Brooklyn Smasher. I imagine a baseball bat would be functional enough, but I guess I don't know. I don't know what's special about the Cold Steel one. I haven't used their like Bokin or anything like that either. So yeah, I'm not sure on that one. Yeah, that's 4 a.m. there. Hopefully I don't know if it's better to be awake that late or up early. I'm not sure which would be better. Sicilian, hey, Cold Steel Gladius machete is on sale for $30 on Amazon. Is that something you'd be interested in reviewing? I did have one a long time ago, didn't end up reviewing it. I do have the Falcata or something, or the Copus machete version. I suppose I could get to it. I wouldn't mind if people would find it interesting. I'm not sure if you think I have something to add to the conversation. Sure, I do have the. I think that's it right there. Copus Velcata thing. I do have something like it, and I had a Gladius once. I can tell you that for $30 they seemed okay, but not. They were very thin and more Gladius shaped, I guess, but interesting enough. I'd be happy to take a look at it and do a review on that stuff if it's interesting. The Danimal, how am I doing? I'm doing well. I'm celebrating 25,000 subscribers. I did also, incidentally, go look at a house earlier today, and it's depressing. It's like a good problem to have, to be able to be in a position where you can buy a home. So I'm not complaining. First world problems, but it's kind of depressing. Like, you go, I find that, like, in house shopping, which is a bit of a diversion from this stream, but I'm looking to move because I want to be closer to my daughter's school, and I love the house that I'm in, but it would be nice to not have to deal with some traffic that I currently deal with. So anyway, looking at a house, and it's just, the market's absolutely nanners right now. So you'll go and look, and you walk in the door and people say, "Yep, offers are all due within an hour." No rush. It's only everything that you own, but just decide in 1 hour. It's nanners, but still good problems to have. Penguin, how did you get into swords? I wish I could answer that question. I don't honestly know what got me into swords. I know that I've liked them as long as I can remember. There's some photo of me which I can't find, but I would be happy to share it. It's not that I'm above doing it, but I used to have like plastic sword toys when I was a kid, and I would just stuff all of them in my pants. And so I have like a bunch of plastic swords just stuffed in my pants, pretending to be a ninja. But as long as I can remember, I've liked swords more than anything. Well, more than any other physical object, right? It's always been a point of interest. I didn't study them to the same extent, or didn't get as involved in history until much later in life, I would say. I always thought swords were cool. I always enjoyed them, but like really falling off the deep end probably happened around 2010, 2008, somewhere in there. That was when I really started getting more invested in the hobby and studying them. And it's funny because, like, I remember not liking history and like that kind of stuff. I always found that to be not my favorite subject in school, and now, like, I read it for fun. So it's it's funny how times change. I wish that I had done more. I could have done lots of book reports on swords and double dip, so to speak. Still thinking about getting a Hanwei Tori Iaido or a practical Iaido. What do you think about the Hanwei Iaido blades? I believe they're stainless steel. Are they allowed in terms of tachikaze? I believe so. I think they were decent Iaido blades, but I don't think they drew and sheathed as well. And I don't think the Idomaki was as tight as the like base level Tezando Minasoka blades. So fittings were interesting and all of that, but I haven't had any Hanwei or Bugei training blade that I've liked as much as the $300 Minasoka Iaido. I've liked the fittings more, I've liked the parts more, but like the drawing and sheathing of the saya and all of that kind of stuff, I haven't liked as much as like the least expensive beginner student package from Tezando. It's just like how it sheathes and the tension and how loud it is when I'm doing Iaido and when I'm doing EI, right? Then like how loud and raspy the scabbard is, how well it draws, if it falls out, how loose the the Ito is, and all of that kind of stuff have a bigger bearing than necessarily the quality of parts. And I've just found that the stuff out of Japan is better. It tends to lock in and feel a little bit better as a training tool if you're operating on a budget. They weren't bad. I did like the Tori. I liked the look of it, and it was loud. But like I remember the scabbard rattled a little bit more, and it was raspy. That could have just been the examples that I've seen, though. Cunning Runs, hope you go to Japan. I know Korea just lifted the curfew the other day. I hope I get to go at some point too. Somebody asked me the other day, like, if you could only have one sword, what would it be? And I mentioned that I would probably choose like a traditionally made Japanese Tamahagane blade because it's pretty to look at, but also then I could travel to Japan and use it to test for Shinza and or use it to test. I could bring it into the country and take it out without as much hubaloo. And not because it's the best or anything like that, but someday I'd like to progress with the swordsmanship that I study and go and do stuff there. But I think it's a ways off for me. At least 5 years, because I would want to bring little guy and stuff, and I don't want to bring him on a plane for 20 hours yet. Up all night. I know I'm not mad, but that's for Leon. Oh, jumping around. Leon, oh yeah, it helps me if you tag me, then I know which questions are for me. Wiley, just an FYI, I did try to send you an email, but the link in the about section doesn't contact you, and I don't have Facebook. Huh. Other people have found it on YouTube. That's weird. I have it. You just have to do the I'm not a robot thingy, or at least you have in the past. If you got Instagram, then that also works. You can ping me there. Otherwise, Twitch, I don't know if there's private message there. I've got a bunch of contacty things down in the description-y areas. I'd tell you my email, but every time I've done it, I get a disproportionate amount of spam that comes in shortly after. So, so I wish there was something I could tell you here, but yeah, usually in the about section, it's there. I'll have to check that again and see why it doesn't come up. Where was I? Shady, when will we see the release of Matthew Jensen's signature katanas? Probably never. Don't get me wrong, I would have no problem designing a sword, but I wouldn't want to make like it's inherently a conflict of interest, right? So if I review things and I expect you to listen to me, it's best not to have or to minimize any potential monetary gain that could be made from said review. And so again, no discredit. I've said this a few times. If there's other people that do it differently, I appreciate that a number of people might not suspect any foul play on my part or respect me enough to think I could be unbiased in that situation. But if I were to design a sword and then have it out in the ether like that, that's not a problem. If somebody just made it and enjoyed it, that's fine. But there would inherently be some sort of kickback or spiff or commission or percentage that I might get from said design. And it would be hard to review them. And then, people would question, well, you make things, so how does that factor in your opinion about what you would recommend from? Anyway, there's a conflict of interest, I think, inherent there. But it's not that I would mind designing something and then just have somebody else make it, so long as the idea would be that I wouldn't get anything out of it, or that other company would not be able to do it exclusively, I guess. Like I could kick out a design and then anyone that wanted to make it could make it, but I don't know if I would be the best at doing that. Anyway, probably no Matt Jensen signature line of katanas. There have been some Matt Jensen designed katanas. I remember Jakku put one out when they sold the review sample or listed it for sale for the one that I made. And I don't know how many, if any, people actually ended up buying that specific model, but it wasn't designed with the intent of like being a good sword. It was designed of like having every feature possible in one sword and being weird and showcasing like, here is how they do this, that, or the other. Like that was the purpose of the sword. So if somebody bought it, I'd imagine it belongs in their curio cabinet more than anywhere else. But yeah, it's fun enough. I certainly wouldn't mind doing it, but just not. Anyway, you get it. Where was I? The Smasher is tough, but then again, aluminum bat is as well. I agree. I don't know how much I would want to use a bat. It would work, but yeah. I mean, in place of something else, they're abundant and cheap, and you can go to the Goodwill and get one for inexpensive, right? Let's see. Catching up on chat. Oh, remember to put a sock in your bat, so when a bad guy tries to grab you, they just get the sock followed by a bonk. It's a reasonable thought. Actually, yeah, that's a neat little trick you're mentioning there. You could also have a very slivery bat. That would be the alternative. In one of the martial arts that I study, there's, in theory, if you're moving at pace, you wouldn't have an opportunity to grapple or grab the weapon. But when you're going slow and controlled and trying not to injure your partner, there are often opportunities that present themselves to kind of grab the opponent's weapon or stick or something like that. And over time, I found that one of my opponents just didn't sand the end of a naginata, and when I grabbed onto it, I was prompted to let go. I don't know if that would be the same if I was in like an actual life or death scenario, but it certainly, I frowned on grabbing it after I got a handful of splinters once. All right, man, I just can't get on board with zinc aluminum blades on Japanese Yaito. Yeah, I can't blame you there. The zinc aluminum blades have a place, right? So what I like about the zinc aluminum pieces is that I just don't have to ever clean them. They're very low maintenance. So if I want to briefly take a break, go out and do some Yaito, clear my head, I don't have to do much. I can pack it up and move along, and I'm not as particular about it as I would be a steel sword. So I do really like them for the low maintenance aspect of things, and otherwise I don't like them. That's really the main point. They're lighter. They do okay, but that's really it. I'd like that I don't have to clean them. The stainless steel stuff is also stained. It's not perfect, but you'd still want to clean it periodically. The zinc stuff I just don't ever worry about. But I get you. If you have the skill as well to remedy the issues with the Hanwei pieces, you might be able to do something by way of putting in some sort of cotton or something like that, because you're not cutting with it, and stem any kind of rattle in the scabbard. And if that's the case, then it's fine. A shim as well could resolve any tensioning issues. You shouldn't have to do it out of the box, but conceivably you're not going to cut anything with it, so you're not terribly worried about putting some cotton down the shaft of it to prevent rattle. If it's raspy, you might have some creative solution for that as well. And then the Ito being on the looser side, that's a challenge, but you could probably resolve it. It's just, those are a lot of things that I just haven't had to deal with on the Japanese ones, at least immediately out of the box. I purchased the Hanwei Yaito. Drawing is a little rough sounding. I like the wrap on it. The grip is a little large, and the wrap is not great. I knew in advance that I would need to do my own wrap. That seems to be, yeah. And it's not that the jet, well, I could show you, I guess. I don't know what I'm blabbing on when I have them here. Bertha's handy. Okie doke. So, this is one I got secondhand, and it's a Japanese Iaito, and it's big, and it's very heavy, and it's quite long. And so when I want to practice with a blade that's equivalent in weight, then this one is what I will gravitate towards, because it is stupid heavy. And I don't remember who made it because I got it secondhand. But the Ito on it is just rock solid. This is probably not the least expensive, but it is a Japanese-made Ito of not a huge amount of value. I did a review on this one some many years back, but here's the Tizando custom one, and the Kashra has worn. You can see that pretty much all the patina, let me try and get it in focus, is gone. That's par for the course. But the Ito still very tight. Here's the only section that is maybe quasi original color. The rest is all absorbed my hand oil, and it's now beginning to get a little bit raspy. You can probably hear it. You know, there's some in there, but it still tensions reasonably well. I've had to shim it once. The Ito has held up well. The Kashra, I needed a little bit of glue. And let me run away. I think I know where the cheapo one is. Running away from stream. Most entertaining. I know where my swords are. Where is it? Here we go. There's swords in the other room too, so it's easy to get lost here. But this is the student grade, pretty inexpensive Japanese Ito. I think this is in like the $300 Minosoka range. But if I shake it hard, I guess it's got some rattle, but draw. It's not too bad. It seems quieter usually. I don't know if I got some stuff in there. It's not too bad. Tensions reasonably well. Draws and sheaths well. It doesn't bind a lot. It's reasonably loud, which is nice. I don't have to fight that. Sometimes the steel ones as well have this, at least the Jakku one had this very pronounced distal taper to achieve the weight. This is, at least, I don't know, it's light, but at the same time about the right thickness. So if you're doing any kind of binding maneuvers, or you touch the sword and bring it above your head, it doesn't feel strange on the hands. And the Ito as well is very, very tight. And there's been very few Chinese-made swords that I have had that have had Ito this tight. So that's good. And that's something that I've come to appreciate. It was this tight. I can't, with a lot of pressure, I can't, well, maybe just barely, but it doesn't feel like with any pressure I can displace the Ito at all. And that's just not something that I see commonly. Even on the nicer Skyjiro pieces or Huawei pieces, there's been a little bit of movement. This, I can leave a mark in my thumb before I can get the Ito to move around a lot. And so those are some of the qualities that I think you get in a Japanese-made Ito, even the cheaper ones over the Chinese-made pieces. And I say Chinese-made, it's not that there aren't examples of good Chinese-made swords. I just haven't seen one that, as a tool for Ito specifically, addresses tension, sound, and tightness of Ito, namely, straight away, and especially not in the $300 price point. As I think of examples of good, the Jayco 90-60 sword that I tested some time ago was actually pretty tight. That was actually a reasonably tight ska, but it still moved around a little bit. But it was a little bulbous, but it was reasonably tight. It's not that they don't happen, but it's just not common, I guess. So as I think of training tool, I want very tight Ito, and I want the tension to be right, and I want the scabbard to be quiet. And those are things that I seem to get more consistently with a Japanese-made Ito over a Chinese-made piece. Which would be nice if I can find one that doesn't do that and is consistent, like, and addresses those things really well. It'd be great. At the same time, like, it's nice that there are at least inexpensive options available from Japan too. All right, hopefully that was helpful. I lost chat again. James, hello from Hawaii. Hello from Minnesota. Oh, where was I? There I am. Have you considered making T-shirts or something for the channel? Merchandise can be a good thing. Maybe in some time I will. At the moment, no. I know YouTube has some like T-shirt partnery things that work by default, and I think the channel needs to be at least 50,000 subscribers before the option opens for me to use them. So, uh, if that, maybe I'll consider it when I get to that milestone. At the moment, though, no. I've teetered on the idea of changing around some of the membership benefits. I take a lot of sword photos, and so I've thought about. It just takes work. It's not that I mind doing it right now. It's just like to make good stuff. I thought about putting high-res photos in a Google Drive that you could then print. Because I take a whole lot of pictures of swords, and I figure I don't care if anyone prints them. But maybe as a special perk, I could kind of cultivate the prettiest ones, try to zazz them up in with my amateurish Photoshop skills and put them in there. And then if you wanted to make a poster or print it, then you could find, I could link you to Costco or something like that to do that. But I wouldn't necessarily print it. But that was what I thought about, because I do take a lot of photos of swords, and I certainly don't mind if anyone wants them. I did think about that. Matt kept meaning to ask, where do you get the different color gi? And also, have you tried any of the gi or hakama from Yamato Bidogu? I don't know if I'm saying that right either. I used to get them from a martial arts store that sold Century primarily, I think was the brand that they had. So there was a local martial arts store, and wasn't terribly local. I had to drive like 20 miles to get there, but they had hakama that I could try on to see if they fit, and I have a few of them. One has been laundered so many times, the like cardboard thing for the back and the pleats are all gone, and it totally just looks more like a pillow pants dress. The short one that I wear now, which incidentally is short because I train a lot in the snow, and it's snow 10 months out of the year here. And then I have a more appropriately sized long one that I just don't, it's nice and I don't want to screw it up. But I tend to get them I got them from a local store, which has since closed. So I will, when I wear holes in them, need to find a new source for hakama. And I haven't tried colors. The ones that I had were black or blue, and that was just what happened to be available at the store when I went. I have done other, like I've worn, I have a blue kendogi, which is got the little tie on it. And then I have an old judo uniform and an old jujitsu uniform that are long enough to use with a hakama, and one's red and one's white. And then I have a more newer black kendogi that fits. But yeah, I've either gotten them at the dojo when I did judo. I got the uniform through them. The jujitsu place, I got the uniform through them, and they were quilted to be able to like be, carry my ass through the air as people were throwing me. So I've used those from time to time when my others are stinky, and then otherwise just I think they're Century martial artsy things that were at the local store. All right. Where was I? I'm going to wrap it up soon. I do have to, this is longer than I expected it to be already. I was going to stop on and just say thanks, but naturally I can't blab for less than 1 hour at a time. But I'm going to catch up with chat. I'm also interested in different color gi, but I like the 9 circles texture. I haven't had a whole lot of gi. That might be the next thing. I train enough in the videos with them. Maybe I can be like, hey, send me a review samples of your gi. Are Murimasa L6 swords any good with Hitatsura finish? I don't know. I don't know much about the brand. I did see that they're on Amazon. Somebody asked me about it the other day. There is also the suspicion around L6. Anytime I see L6, I'm inherently dubious about it. It's not to say that in China they don't have L6. It seems like that is not the case, and they have access to American steels. Beiser used American S7, and they do 3V. And when I tested the sword, it seemed to take a lot of wax to break on a croquet stake. And I don't doubt that Hanwei used L6, and they manufacture things in China, but doing it well is a challenge. L6, the name brings a lot of recognition and people think it's great, but I haven't had a lot of luck with one of the mantises. I found that it rolled easy. And a long time ago, I did an Oni katana video where I accidentally hit the stand that you've probably seen me strike 1,000 times with other swords, and it really drastically rolled the edge. I'm uploading a video now, which will, if you remember, I guess you'll see it quick, but it won't be up for a little bit, but I broke the Ronin Dojo Pro number 30, and I had some beef rib bones, and I whacked those beef rib bones, and I hadn't cut like the bone in a long time, and it screwed the edge up quite a bit. The rolling that I saw from cutting a beef bone, like a dried, brittle, angry bone, on the Ronin katana was like similar to what I saw on the Oni katana from accidentally bumping my wooden stand, which has not caused damage to many other swords. So it's not just the, hey, maybe this company's selling, and I don't know which one you're looking at, but there's some companies that are like, this sword is L6 and it's $50. I doubt that that's the case, because if it is L6, it's probably the material cost would be more expensive. I would speculate. But it's really, do you know how to heat treat it? So Howard Clark does a great job heat treating L6. There are other companies that do a really good job heat treating L6 too, I'm sure. But Hanwei's a pretty good company. They tend to have swords of high repute. It's not that they're flawless, but even them, charging $1,300 for an L6 sword, it rolled when I bumped the stand. And so I don't know if they're good, is the short answer. I would almost feel better if it was not L6, because supposedly that's just a pain in the butt to heat treat and can do wonderful things if you do it correctly. But on a budget, like I find it unlikely that the people working with it either have the tools, experience, or materials necessary to really get the most out of that sword. And it seems to be more of a gimmick. It could be amazing, though. I don't know. But let me know if you whack it into stuff. Let me know if it folds over when you bump your stand with it. All right. Bought a custom Iaido from Jayco, which I really like, but the Tachikaze was quiet. Yeah, they don't, like a really deep bohi and a reinforced Kasaki tend to do it. All of the Japanese-made Iaito that I have are reasonably loud. I don't know if I could exactly point to why that is, but they tend to be pretty vocal. The oldest one that I have, which is this Tizando custom one, I'm glad I left them at my feet. It has a pretty steep taper, and it doesn't have a reinforced Kasaki area, but it's actually still pretty noisy. And it's an easy button to actually to hear what's going on. So hopefully the audio picked that up and you could actually hear it. All right. Pictures of swords would be cool. Wonderful how much posters hanging. I don't know. But I figure if I give you the photo for free, then, well, if I suppose it's a member, it'll cost you $1 a month to have access, though I don't know if I could restrict it to that. But anyway, theoretically, if you had a JPEG and you could blow it up to poster size, then it would cost you however nice you wanted it to be. I know some really nice poster prints are like hundreds of dollars. If you go to a really nice like pro photo spot, there's a photographer guy that I know. Anyway, there's a gentleman that I know who has coached me a lot on photography, and when he prints stuff, he goes to I can't remember the name of the company, but he pays a lot for prints because the photo quality of the print is significantly better and the color accuracy is better, and he can spend a lot. Alternatively, if I print a similar size thing at Costco, it's like 1/8 of the price. So it could depend on really how much you want to do. Let's see. Roger, I wondered if you were a judoka. I started in '69, retired in 2008. Uh, Now in a swords and kali knife systems. Congrats. Yeah, I did judo for a very, very brief time. Very helpful in learning how to fall. I focused a little bit more on jujitsu though. So for a brief moment, I went to a school called the Warriors Cove, and they had jujitsu, kickboxing, yoga, eskrima, jujitsu, judo, kickboxing, yoga, and eskrima in the same school. And if you subscribe to the membership program, you could just go to any of the classes at any time you wanted. And so I kind of gravitated more towards eskrima and jujitsu towards the end. Kickboxing, the way they did it, was like uh, a cardio burn. It was a lot of moving, and I was tired. But for a minute there, I was going a few days a week, and I'd go as soon as I finished at work, and sometimes class would end at like midnight, and it would wipe me out. And it wasn't until I stopped doing it, like I realized how hard it was on me. I was constantly sore. My joints constantly ached. I was always bruised or torn or had the gi rash or mat rash somewhere on me. Uh, yeah, and I was just like, there were times that I was just constantly tired and winded. And then I had to finish some college stuff, so I had to stop going to the class. And I remember I asked them if I could pause my membership after being there for, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years or something like that. And they said no. I was like, well, I guess I'll stop. And I didn't end up going back. But I remember when I like paused, and like a month later, I was like, wow, I feel so much better. Everything doesn't hurt. I don't throw my neck out when I sneeze as often. So anyway, where was I? But yes, I did judo for a very brief time. I didn't really ever get anywhere in it, but I did go do a number of judo classes, and it was very, very helpful in learning how to fall, because it's very odd in each of the classes. And this is maybe unique to the school. I don't want to say it's representative of every jujitsu or judo or eskrima or kali or Filipino martial art place that you might go. But in jujitsu, you started and you learned ground, and you didn't do ankle locks. You didn't throw people on the ground. You didn't throw anyone until like much later, and until you were demonstrated competency in getting to the ground. You had to achieve a belt rank before you tossed anyone. In eskrima, there weren't a lot of throws. There was a lot of boxing and fighting and whacking people with sticks and knives and that kind of thing. But there was some boxing, very little grappling though. And so when you did either standing grappling or you started from the floor, like the eskrima stuff covered the striking and the kicking and the stick work, and jujitsu filled in like the ground and standing grappling side of things. It really paired well together. Judo right away was immediately, we're going to throw you across the room. Like, here's how you fall. And it was a lot of, we're going to throw you on the ground. It was just a getting to the ground class. And so it all like paired really well. It was just interesting to say, like, the jujitsu side of stuff was like, we're not going to throw you. You're not ready for it. And eskrima was like, we're not going to grapple. You're not ready for it. Judo was like, we're just going to throw you. You're not ready for anything else until you know how to land, not break your neck. Don't bother doing anything else. And it was interesting to see like the starting places of each one, but they all factored really well together. And ultimately, like every one of those martial arts kind of prepared you for the other, except for, and yoga actually really helped too. That was good for stretching. Kickboxing though was just you have no energy to do anything else, and you will be a puddle of goo if you are sparring with anyone, because after that class there was no gas left in the tank. Where was I? Yeah, it's been a minute since I've done that though. Blah, blah. Both hardening and tempering L6 requires relatively long soak times at very high temperatures. Leon, you make stuff, so you certainly know more about it than I do. I don't. But from the user perspective, like dulling from bumping with the grain strike into the top of my post, like not even against the grain, just bumping into it, caused my L6 Oni to bend. And I want to say that I had a Mantis as well that was prone to bending. it just strikes me that the heat treatment isn't done well, and not for. I trust Hanwei to try and have a pretty consistent process. Generally, the swords have been pretty good. I've done some really dumb stuff with them, in fairness. So if they can't get it right, it makes me wonder how likely it is that other forges are doing L6 properly, if they have L6 at all. That's I suppose the other thing. Like, I find it doubtful when I see a L6 blade for $200 that it is an L6 blade. And that's one of those things that unfortunately you just have no way of validating, right? With a computer, if it says like it's got this thing in it, then there's some tools that you can put on to see, like, does it do that thing, and does it perform the way that thing does, in contrast to other people that have measured the results of that thing. But with the steel in a sword, we can tell you it's made of reindeer tears, and there's no way to validate if it does that. Anyway, it's not to say that it couldn't be, right? Because I've also seen plenty of swords that hold up really well and do really amazing things and are offered at very compelling prices. So it's entirely possible that it's a good sword. I just don't happen to know. And when I hear L6, a steel that is a lot of people go bananas over because it's supposed to be special, and that is synonymous with a challenging heat treatment technique that other companies that are well respected don't get right, I'm inherently skeptical of if it is either A, real, or B, good. And it seems like more variation. I would rather just have a sword made of 1060, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of the smiths in China use that quite a lot, and they seem to be very capable of doing heat treatment reasonably well and working with that steel to get closer to what that steel's fully capable of than a steel that they may not be as familiar with. But that's for what that's worth. All right. Wiley, thank you for pimping the stream out. I've been seeing a lot of comments with the lectures. So thank you for everyone that has liked and all of that stuff. Joe, I saw you in there too. Thank you for driving. I bought an eBay L6. Turned out to be a fake Hamon, super hard steel and resist taking a set, but hard thing to trust. Yeah, and I wish I could tell you. I don't know if L6 through hardened is better or worse. I honestly don't know. But if it doesn't bend or chip and you've pushed the sword, then that's at least good. Whatever it's made out of is effective. I got a couple L6 blades to review. Haven't cut with them just yet, but will soon. Thanks, Bird. Yeah, I do wonder. I know Cult of Athena is now doing their like metallurgy test thing. It'd be interesting to see if I could find the source that they use and like if it's possible to independentely verify at a cost-effective basis. Because I have a sneaking suspicion that many of the L6 blades advertised at the sub $300 level are not L6 at all. I don't imagine how that's. But it could be, but it seems like there's a lot of factors stacking against it being less likely. I recall seeing a video of an Angel Sword L6 blade that had L6 blade. That I had their Buccaneer L6, Eric, and it was one of the best cutting blades that I had. I mean, it was a turd Ferguson in a lot of other ways. The Saya was a bit of a joke. The Ito was not great. The fittings were doofy. It kind of looked like an inexpensive parts bin special from a Longquan forge, but at the same time, it cut really well. And I didn't push it particularly hard, but it cut extremely well. Yeah, I'm live on the internet. You need to charge your Switch? Put it in over there. Skepticism is definitely warranted. Skepticism should be increased according to the difficulty of heat. Yeah, I just the L6 the same way if I hear like 3V or any other kind of exotic steel, it's not that it's impossible. It's not that Chinese forges aren't capable of doing it. It's not that there aren't immensely talented, capable smiths in China that have access to the materials. I don't mean to say that it's completely implausible. I'm not thinking that the folks and smiths over there are dumb, that they don't know what to do, that they only have access to dirt. That's not what I think at all. But when you do see like a too good to be true kind of thing, like, well, how are you getting this relatively expensive and kind of boutique-y steel and buying it and being able to sell it at a cost that is, in the $300 range, which is often where I see the L6 blades. Two, it's universally thought of as more challenging to heat treat than some of the other things. Like, do you have the capability of doing that in a way that will be functional to differentially heat treat and do well? Yeah, it's not that it's impossible. I find it unlikely. I certainly find it more likely that when somebody advertises a Tamahagane blade and it's $700, that you might not be using like traditional Japanese made Tamahagane done in the strictest definition of the word. But if you're using, iron sand or you're making your own bloomery forge steel and you're doing that yourself from other steel sources that you have, that seems possible. But the L6 for $300 seems less likely. that seems, and again, I don't. I want to say that my skepticism senses are tingling there, but I have no way to prove that it is not. It would be interesting to see somebody buy an L6 sword and then send it off to a testing facility and validate that it is or isn't. That, I suppose that would be the only way to substantiate, the skepticism or not. It'd be great, honestly, if it came back as, hey, the sword is in fact L6 and it is in fact heat treated correctly. And I would love to not be skeptical about it and say that at a very cost-effective level, people have access to that awesome material, super steel, cool performance thing. Was it a frozen pool noodle? I haven't seen anyone. I mean, dulling on a pool noodle would be that would be challenging. They even get easier to cut when they get really cold rather than harder. Paul, have I ever tried John Lee katana? I have not. I remember Simon Lee for a brief time, but I don't know a John Lee. Garland, twice this week. I guess I'll have to see what I missed. Yep, just a blabber session again. That's hopefully enjoy. Twice this week. I wasn't going to do it again this week, but it was a special milestone, so I figure it was warranted. Shang sword, Eric. Yeah, I don't recall a Shang sword damaging in a pool noodle, though I did chip one on a water bottle neck. Not that that's not that they're the only sword company that's done that. If you cut a thick plastic bottleneck. Do you recommend Huawei or Hanwei? I like both of them. The Huawei pieces tend to be a little bit far behind schedule, though. So if you're buying something that's in stock, the other day somebody was mentioning that the Huawei pieces were that they got it in a couple months. But if Joe is still here, he's been waiting, what seems like a lifetime for his blade. So if you have patience, then I think the result of the Huawei pieces tend to be a little less unique. Maybe they use pretty common fittings across their blade, and there's less kind of artistic choices in the Koshirai overall. But I think they tend to deliver better feeling handles, tighter ito, and a better assembled sword, and some other touches fit and finish wise that I like. Hanwei's not a slouch though either. The tangs on the Hanweis before Huawei used to be some of the only ones out there that were cleaner. And I really like their fittings. They do some really cool job with fittings. Their blades, have lost a little zazz in them. They don't have the kind of the market cornered on good swords like they used to. So if I were studying EI or you like something from Huawei, I would probably lean that direction. I still really like Hanwei though, and I think of Hanwei as kind of the more or less the standard by which other swords are judged. And fairness, they're still a force to be reckoned with in the sword world. They still make good stuff. Summon it up for me. Is your Hanwei bamboo mat your favorite katana? Paul, I did a video about my favorite swords. I have the favorite swords that I would choose to practice with, and then yes, the nonsensical love. I do really like my Hanwei bamboo mat. That's my favorite. I don't know if you would. It's not the sword I would recommend to everyone, but that's the one I have an unhealthy infatuation with. L6 is quite common in certain industries, also common with knife makers, so it's not a mystery substance, just not so common. I mean, maybe. I don't know, honestly. I don't know I couldn't presume to understand the manufacturing situation in Longchuan. I deal with other types of manufacturers for my day job, and there's abundant access to raw materials and stuff. So I don't doubt that it's an accessible material. How accessible or easy, I really don't know, but it's not that I doubt that there's, no L6 in China or something like that. The thing, yeah, there's just a lot of challenge there around price. That's it. And it's again, I'm skeptical, but I'm also not saying it's impossible. I don't know. But I've heard that there's a number of times that people will advertise a thing, steal a thing, and then it turns out not to be that thing. And L6 is just one of those buzzwords that people seem to really, that's a special thing that might sell more swords. And if it's a unknown vendor and they're advertising really inexpensive L6, it would just kind of raise my spider senses a little bit. Last answer I got from them was Blade and Suka are done. It will be ready in the near future. That was a year. Joe is still here and telling you his story with Huawei. So if you buy what's in stock, if you can get one. I waited 11 months without getting a Huawei sword I ordered. I did ask for a refund, but after these months, I did ask for a refund, and after these months, I got every penny back. I mean, that's glad you didn't get your 11 months back, though. That's irritating. Any projects in the works? Sorry, I grabbed the Geek Key Fittings that David had up. No worries. No, I've the My Little Pony katana might be lost in transit. I'm hoping it's not, but the postage folks have not scanned it yet, so I'm not sure if it's here or not. But apart from that, I don't have any other projects. I'm hoping that somebody I know has an L6 blade up for sale from Howard Clark, but we're just haggling on price, and I hope that it works out and I can buy it at a price that I can justify. But that's a bit of a challenge. So there's some prospective projects, but nothing at the moment. I gotta get some stuff in hand to do. And I don't think I have anything at the moment that I want to redo. I have thought about the Tachi that I talked about some time ago, remounting it and putting it in Tachi fittings, but the ones from Hyper Cafe that I have probably won't fit, so I might not do that. But yeah, nothing special right now. The My Little Pony is the project that I'm noodling on the most. Hey, recently got on the channel, love your content, really enjoy the durability test. I have a question for you. What websites and what brands would you most recommend as far as katanas? So Facebook is a good place, and Sword Buyer's Guide Forum, if you're looking to learn about stuff, there's different groups there that have some information. There's Nihonto message board if you're looking for the antique side of things. Either of those are good spots to go for information to buy. Cult of Athena is one that a lot of people know. They seem to be pretty reliable. Sword and Armory is another they have some other like house brand stuff. I'm not sure if Munatoshi is still going or not, but I've known folks that have bought from those and been happy. Yeah, that would be where I'd look, and then eBay for secondhand stuff, as well as the Sword Buyers Guide forum and Facebook groups. There's some other stuff for sale there. I own a Hanwei 2073. I don't know what that model number is. It's a factory dull in the first 3 inches from the Baki. I've never seen it on any other katana. Have you, Paul? Yes. Most swords properly done have that feature. There's a bunch of reasons. Some people say it leaves room for the polisher. Some there's reasons quoted, but a lot of swords have dull edges for the first few inches after the habaki. That's normal and intentional, and not a dud thing. It's I would argue it's supposed to be there. It's not that it's always there or that it can't go either way, but very often the first few inches after the habaki, sometimes 6 or 7 inches after the habaki, aren't as razor sharp, depending on length of the sword and all of that other stuff. But if you see some dullness immediately after the habaki, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Also bear in mind that junction, like if you imagine you had a very keen razor edge that was resting on top of a piece of brass, there's some flex that goes on from the suba and the habaki, and it presses into that hamachi area, that edge, that ledge where the habaki rests on. And if it's too thin, then it's more susceptible to bending or cracking, or not acting the way that it's supposed to, and damaging the blade rather than compressing the habaki. So it's a good thing that you have some more robust meat there. I would say I would rather have that than not. Wiley, I don't think 50,000 will happen this year. I don't know. The channel did grow substantially from a video that Cerberus Arms made, and I was not on track to hit 25 anytime soon, but the channel close to doubled after he made a video, and it went rather viral. And towards the tail end of it, he advocated people come look here, and that about doubled the size of the channel. I find it very unlikely that it will grow to 50 in a year, but prove me wrong. All right, I'm gonna wrap things up here. So Wiley, I think you're the last comment. If you're looking for fittings in the price range Hyper Frey I've had great success with Sophie Coke cast in brass, but very well done. Garland, that's good. I know. Supposedly, I will get some samples from Sophie Coke at some point in the not too distant future. But I also saw their stuff on eBay, and that it looked really nice. And so I was thinking about actually how I would incorporate them in the My Little Pony katana if they had something that might work. But anyway, that is. I agree. I haven't seen anything just yet, but I've heard people have been happy with their stuff. I just don't know a lot of people that have used their stuff just yet. Eric, you've heard that the first to keep track of getting tired. Yeah, there's a bunch of reasons that people say for this, that, or the other facet. I just know that the first few inches above the habaki being dull seems to be a common enough thing. So if you saw it on a sword that you bought and you were concerned that, hey, were they asleep at the wheel? Why isn't the blade sharp? That first few inches not being sharp is totally normal. No cause for panic. All right. I'm gonna stop here. I've actually got caught up with chat, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I do want to thank everyone for the questions and engagement. I love that I can pop on here and there's stuff to talk about every time. I get some good questions, some good thoughts. I also want to thank everyone that subscribed, and there's a bunch of people that liked. Thank you for the folks encouraging that in chat as well. But yeah, this is it. It's a 25,000. Sorry, I messed it up already. Thanks. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for the questions. Thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for the recommendations. And thanks for making it fun. Really, like it's a milestone and it's good, but it's also been quite a bit of fun along the way to make the content. And if people weren't subscribing or throwing in the kind words and stuff like that, I probably would have stopped a long time ago. So I'm glad that it's helpful. It certainly puts wind in the sails to keep going with the amount of positive feedback that I get. So thank you for that. Anyway, that's all the pep talk I have. I appreciate it again. I'm gonna hop off now. Cheers, and thanks for watching.